Welcome back to the channel. This is The Confused Wanderer, and my name is Todd. Today's video, we're going to go over an introduction to Lou. And if you've been following my previous videos covering the raw material and also covering the material on the Cassiopeian cult and exposing the Cassiopeian cult and exposing Laura Knight as a basic fraud who is channeling for the Lizzies or service to self, then maybe you have heard Bryce and I, Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta, my partner, my girlfriend, my common law wife. Most of you, I'm sure, found your way over to my channel through Esoteric Atlanta. Anyway, I'm sure you've picked up on Bryce and I mentioning Lou, that we've been talking to Lou. And we felt like that it was a good time to give a proper introduction to Lou and who Lou is and how we got in contact with Lou and some of the information we've gotten from Lou, because in the not too distant future, we're going to start doing some live channeling of Lou. Now, first, I want to give a little bit of a backstory of how we got in contact with Lou. As most of you know that have watched my prior videos, I've been into studying or looking into channeling work, mostly just the raw material and also the Cassiopeian material. And so I've been looking into this, curious about it, sort of studied it, some of the philosophy, especially with the raw material, which I feel like is sort of the best channeling material that's out there to date. Been studying that material for upwards of 20 years, and it wasn't until recently that I decided to give it a try. But really, it was Bryce that decided to give it a try because I had bought a spirit board like a few years ago and with the intentions of trying to channel on the spirit board, and it just sort of sat around and collected dust until Bryce and I, or really until Bryce sort of insisted that we try it. We were in sort of a desperate situation in our lives, and Bryce was feeling like that she was being constantly attacked from all directions, and she was at a breaking point, and she had felt that the only way that she could think to find a possible solution was to see if we could do some channeling. And so we pulled out the board and sat down and put our hands on the planchette. And it wasn't long until we made contact. And the first contact we made was with an entity, come to find out, was a service to self entity. And we sat with that for a little while and talked to that entity for 10 or so minutes. And the reason why we knew it was a service itself entity is because there's a protocol and you ask, and entities cannot lie, at least those of fourth density and above, because they don't have the veil. And we've covered this material in previous episodes, touched on it. So we talked to this service to self entity for a bit, and then we told that entity that we were no longer willing to talk to it. And then immediately, as soon as the planchette stops moving, another entity starts talking to us by the name of Lou, Lu. And we ask Lou where Lou was from, and Lou said that they were in fourth density service to others. And we started to talk. And at first, planchette moved very slowly, and it would basically only be able to give us yes or no answers. And some of the basic, so the board that we were using has both yes, no, letters, numbers, and then it has words on the outer ring, specific words. And so it could use the yes or no, and then sometimes go to the words and just basic, very basic movements of the planchette at first. And we continued pulling out the board multiple times a day, and it didn't take long for the planchette to just start shooting around the board and spelling eventually complete words. And that's where it took off. And so from the moment that we sat down and talked to the service to self first, and then we got Lou on the board, it's been Lou every single time. And, and so it's been Lou every single time. We haven't gotten any other entities, and we always go through a certain protocol to make sure who we're talking to is actually who we're talking to. And that's very important that every time you sit down at the board, the channel, regardless of who they say they are, you go through the protocol. We'll talk about that later on, and when we start channeling live, you'll see firsthand what the protocol is to keep things safe and to assure you're talking to who it is you're talking to, and they're of the right polarity. So Lou is not just one person. Lou is a social memory complex. And if you've studied the raw material, you'll know a social memory complex, when you move to out of third density and the fourth, fifth, sixth density, the service to others path, they form what's called a social memory complex. And that's where all the consciousness units, all the entities of that group will merge their consciousness together into one unit. And so they share all their experiences, all their knowledge, all their thoughts and feelings are all pooled into one complex. And so you still have individuality. You still have individuality within that social memory complex, but also you're sharing the consciousness of that complex together. And so when you're channeling fourth density, fifth density, sixth density service to others, you should be talking to always one entity. They don't individuate. That's of the service to self path. So that's one way you could figure out whether or not you're channeling, if you don't go through the proper questions and protocols to figure out who you're channeling. If you're channeling an entity or multiple entities every time you get on the board, it's someone new, most likely, or not even most likely, definitely, it's going to be a service to self entity, or a ghost, a disincarnate spirit, I guess you could call it, which there's no need of talking to those people unless there is an absolute need. And if there was a need, then the service to others contact you have will bring those people in, because that's happened with us before, as we would be talking to Lou, and Lou would have a deceased family member come in and be able to talk to us briefly under Lou. So Lou would invite the person in, you would talk to them, and then that person would leave, and Lou would come back and then continue the discussion. That's only happened, from what I can remember, it's only happened a couple of times with us, but it was in a subject, within a topic that we were talking about, within something that was going on in our lives where we needed to talk to that person, or that person needed to talk to us. But 99% of the time, we're always talking to Lou. And when Lou comes, it's always Lou. And so I guess from there, I can go in and talk about, let me see, this is just sort of a free and open short video I want to do as an introduction to Lou. And I'm trying to figure out how I can make it clear about, who Lou is. And also, I guess it would be a good idea for me to cover why we would be channeling Lou live in the first place. So, the reason why we would be bringing Lou out to channel is not because we want to be the latest and greatest channelers out there. Absolutely not. This is probably going to be something that's done temporary, but maybe not. That's really up to Lou to decide whether or not we'll continue doing this. You know, it may last for a few sessions, it may last for a month, it may last for a year. Um, but the bottom line is that I feel it's important to bring this out because there's so much confusion when it comes down to channeling and what channeling is for, who can channel, what information can what information is proper to get through channeling. Uh, Channeling is not something for the masses necessarily. There's the rare occasions I feel, and I'm gaining a new understanding of it myself as I'm going through this process with Lou. And I was under the misconception that channeling was something that was done by a select few people, which it is, but by a select few people that were given that ability to disseminate information to the masses. And in a sense, for instance, with the raw material, I feel like that was the intention with the raw material was to lay a very simple foundation in regards to the law of one. Ra brought novel concepts out to us where they broke down and helped us understand the two different paths that we have to travel on within third density. Ra also laid out the framework of spiritual evolution in regards to the densities and how we move through those densities. And those concepts were very useful for the masses. And so, in that sense, sometimes channeling can be done with the intention of disseminating information out to a large audience of people. But with that being said, it's very rare that that would happen. Channeling, from what I understand now, was meant to help wanderers specifically on their path in third density. Because a wanderer's existence within third density is is dangerous. It's filled with traps and pitfalls. It's filled with a life of constant attacks from many different directions and means. And it's the one, it's the one siddhi that wanderers have to help keep their head above water and keep them from completely falling off their path, so to speak. And so channeling in that sense would be done in private because a lot of the information that we've been getting from Lou has been not information that we would necessarily want to broadcast. It's really, for me especially, it's been like working with a guru, and Ra thinks that's really funny because a wanderer like myself and Bryce are of a higher density than Lou. Lou is fourth density service to others, but a wanderer is going to be either fifth or sixth, mostly sixth density. And so we have a lot more experience than Lou. And so that's actually where my channel name came from was Lou joking around when I would say, Lou, it's like you're my guru. And Lou would laugh and say, "Oh, my little confused wanderers." because when I would say, Lou, you're like my guru, Lou would say, but you're LOL, but you're sixth density. And so they're very humble in that way, but also they get a lot of entertainment out of the fact that sixth density wanderers would need to ask the advice and need the direction and protection of a fourth density social memory complex. So that's sort of the story behind my channel name, The Confused Wanderers, because Lou would say, "Oh, my little confused wanderers," because they're they find a lot of humor in that a wanderer, a sixth density wanderer, would be so lost and have such a hard time in third density, but they understand the veil, and so it's sort of like being out with your drunk friend. I think that's the way Lou sees it, is like, we're these drunkards here in third density, and we're just sort of stumbling around, and they're our chaperone or our designated driver, so to speak. And there's a lot of jokes around the fact that we're sixth density, but we're looking up to Lou, and actually Lou uh, is really funny, and it's just an incredible sense of humor, and it's hard to imagine, you know, I- anyway, the way the planchette moves sometimes is hilarious. And you would think like, oh, it's just a planchette moving around a board. How could that be funny? But I think that you'll eventually see how humor can come not only by what they say, but also the way that they orchestrate the planchette. And it's had me in tears laughing so hard sometimes, the way that they can joke, some of the best, incredible sense of humor, and it's really good to know that humor still exists all the way up the line into the higher densities. And they say actually, as you move up into the higher densities, you have a better sense of humor, and it's so true. A sense of humor that isn't bound in time, that is absolutely spontaneous, is the most hilarious stuff that you'll ever experience. So anyway, I'm getting
Hey
off
guys,
topic.
quick break because I want to put you on to something that's actually changed the way I train. This video is sponsored by Fusion Body Studio, and if you haven't tried bar for men yet, you're seriously leaving strength on the table. Look, most of us grew up thinking fitness means heavy weights, big lifts, and pounding our joints into dust. But the first time I tried bar at Fusion Body Studio, I realized how much control, stability, and raw muscle endurance I'd been missing. Bar hits those small, deep muscle groups that guys usually overlook. We're talking stronger cores, explosive balance, mobility that actually carries over into your real workouts, and yeah, your posture improves too. It's humbling in the best way. Fusion Body Studio's online classes make it easy to jump in, whether you're a beginner or already training hard. And right now, you can get 20% off your first 6 months with the code AYA20. If you want to level up your training with something that actually makes you stronger, leaner, and more athletic, check out fusionbodystudio.com and use AYA20 at checkout. Trust me, your body will thank you.
So channeling. So getting back to the reason why we would be going public with Lou. So through our conversations with Lou, Lou has stated that we could help Bryce and I, and what we're doing here, for one, taking down this nefarious Cassiopeian cult and Laura Knight Yaddick. But at the same time, because they've really created this cult around channeling, is is just not correct. I mean, that's obvious. That's service to self, and it's tainted channeling, because really, if you look out there, there are these kooky new age channelers on TikTok that I'm surprised anyone takes serious. That's an absolute joke. But then there's the Cassiopeians, who I feel, even though there's been even though there has been a cult formed around them, and even though that their service to self, there is some, I guess you could say, integrity around that in a sense. There would be more integrity if the channeler would have been more honest and that in stating that they were service to self, channeling service to self. Um, but anyway, they've gotten a good bit of attention, and it's been this channeling work, supposed channeling work. I think we're going to get into that a little more later, but supposed channeling work that's been around for a long time, and they continue to channel, and it's it's really, I feel like that all this fake channeling out there has really tainted the how could I put it, has tainted the practice, I guess you could say, the practice of channeling. And so the reason why we are going to be channeling Lou live is with the intention to bring integrity and understanding back to channeling, to help people understand what channeling really is, what it is used for, what its proper place is, and yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, maybe, I mean, who knows where it's going to go? Lou's very sometimes just comes up with surprises. Some subjects we'll try to talk about uh, will be closed, or they'll say wait, and and then later on down the road, all of a sudden that subject will come back up and there'll be a huge information, um, a large amount of information that's revealed to us. Now, we don't go over conspiracy theories very rarely. There's things that maybe we go over that you could classify sort of in conspiracy theories, but that will be within a topic that the only way to really understand that topic is to delve a little bit into maybe what could be called conspiracy theories. But um, Lou has, I mean, I've sometimes tried to question a little bit too much about certain things, and I've been hung up on. Just goodbye, and that's that. Not in a rude way, but just like, that's the end of that line of questioning. So there's going to be some boundaries that we set around this. And the only boundaries we're going to set about questionings to Lou is we're not going to entertain conspiracy theories. We're not going to entertain questions about politics or necessarily about current events. We're going to be questioning about our lives as spiritual beings within third density. That's the most important topic that we can discuss. Now, Lou brings up a lot, references a lot the teachings of yoga and how the Yoga Sutras in particular are a roadmap, especially for wanderers in regards to spirituality. And that if you were to study the Yoga Sutras and you understood the Yoga Sutras deeply, that would help keep you on the straight and narrow in your life in the sense of not being fooled by falling for, or less likely be fooled by falling for false prophets or manipulated spiritual concepts and teachings. And so, if you were to study the Yoga Sutras and you take everything that you hear in regards to uh, channeling or other types of teachings, spiritual teachings, if it were to fit within the framework of the Yoga Sutras, then most likely it is honest and genuine and useful knowledge. Now, we're not going to get into that too much here, but I'd just like to say that if you were going to do any background study and research into channeling, into spirituality, into the spiritual path, that your best bet is to study the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So, with that being said, I wanted to ask first if if anyone has questions that they would like us to ask Lou during our channeling sessions, our live channeling sessions, then leave your comments below, leave those questions below, and we'll get to those questions if they fit to into the topics that we're going to allow. Remember, we're not trying to gatekeep here. We just don't want to waste any time with conspiracy theories. And also, we don't really want to go over anyone's personal questions either, because there's some limits to that. If you had personal questions that you wanted to ask fourth density service to others contact, then I would recommend buying yourself a spirit board and giving that a try and see if that you could pick up if you could contact anyone. So we're not going to take personal questions, but questions about in the lines of like spirituality, life in third density, and how we can um, better tread our path within third. And questions revolving around that. Questions about the densities, questions about the different types of souls, questions about wanderers or third density native people. An endless amount of questions can be asked. So if you have some pressing questions you would like us to ask Lou, and also, we're gonna be channeling live, and so we'll have, we can look at the comments and pull some questions out of the comments as well. But it would help us if you gave us, some topics you would like discussed, and we could direct things uh, through your questions that way. Let me see. I have a list of stuff here I wanted to make sure that I covered. Like I said, this is sort of impromptu, and actually, it's funny because we were just talking to Lou earlier today, and Lou was saying, you should do a video. Suggest you should do a video introducing Lou. I think Lou is excited to talk to you all, and Lou is excited to get themselves out there because uh, there has been such mis there's been a lot of misinformation about channeling. And so we all feel, Bryce, Lou, and I feel it's a really good time to try to bring the integrity back to channeling. And we also feel that by by bringing the integrity back to channeling, we can also help take down some of these, bring awareness. We can help bring awareness to some of these cults forming around these both fake channelers and then channelers that insist on lying to you, saying that they're channeling service to others when they're really channeling service to self. And we had covered this in previous episodes where just because the fourth density channel that you're talking to is service to self doesn't necessarily mean it's not valuable information that could be given, because fourth density service to self, like the Cassiopeians, love to brag. And so by them bragging, they give you information that could be very useful for those on the service to others path. The more you know about your quote unquote enemy or those on the opposite path, the better equipped you are not to fall into the pitfalls that are the traps that the service to self set for those on the service to others path. So, with Lou, us coming out with Lou and talking to Lou, hopefully that will help wake people up that have been manipulated and have trapped themselves within these cults that have formed around channelers or people that are fake channelers, because we have never seen Lauronite Yadic, getting back to the Cassiopeian cult, we have never seen Lauronite Yadic. We've never seen her channel. Don't you find that strange? That we've believed, and I say we because there was a time that I believed that she was channeling. And there was a time that I believed that Lauronite Yadic was channeling a service to others. social memory complex. But now we know that she's channeling or supposedly channeling service to self, Lizzie's, as we affectionately call them. And that's a joke. So by us bringing Lou out, that's sort of funny. By us channeling Lou on live streams, we're going to prove, if there even needs to be proof, we're going to prove, no, I'm going to put that a different way. By bringing Lou, by channeling Lou publicly on live streams, it's going to set an example, I feel, for if others are out there and they're putting work out, claiming that they're channeling, then here's the challenge. If you're channeling, if you're actually channeling, then put out lives, put out YouTube live videos and show us your channeling. Show us who you're channeling. Ask the questions, ask the very simple protocol questions on who it is that you're talking to in a way that doesn't allow any manipulation by the entity you're channeling. And we're going to show you all in our live videos when we talk to Lou how you go about establishing confirmation of who and what it is that you're talking to. A protocol that should happen every time you sit down at the board. So that's one way by us coming out live with Lou. That's one way we're going to help raise the bar in the standards of channeling. Because, like we said, really, at the end of the day, it's very rare that channeling would even need to be publicly done because channeling at the end of the day is for wanderers to use to help them tread their path as they wander here in third density. The relationship that Bryce and I have with Lou most of the time, like I said, is covering personal information. It's of a personal nature that helps us navigate our lives, navigate the difficulties we find with both hangups within ourselves, maybe you could say even flaws within our personalities, um, or difficulties that arise within our lives during uh, coming from things like spiritual attacks, like legit spiritual attacks that you have no other answers for other than the fact that it's a spiritual attack. So that's what really channeling is for. And and that's a good thing because people people tend that people that don't channel, people that don't have the ability to channel, and that's fine if you don't have the ability to channel. If you don't have the ability to channel, then you obviously don't need to be channeling. It's as simple as that. But sometimes people will come along and maybe they can channel, and those people want to create a following around them. And by putting out this novel information that's coming from the channel, they can then form a cult. And and so, that's another reason I think why, I don't exactly know where I'm going with this. I'm just sort of shooting off the cuff here and just trying to cover as much information as I can, uh, and explain to you why it is that we would be putting this work out there. Um, so pretty much I think that pretty much sums it all up for now as an introduction to Lou. Like I said, Lou is a service to other social memory complex from fourth density, and Lou sometimes tells us, Lou knows all. And what they mean is when they say Lou knows all, is that when you live beyond the veil, there are no more secrets. There are still lessons to be learned, along the path of refinement into fifth density and sixth density and eventually seventh density. And so it's not an egoic thing for Lou to say Lou knows all. That doesn't mean that Lou understands the entirety of the path from fourth to sixth necessarily, but they're existing beyond the veil. So, like I said, there is nothing hidden from them. And even though Lou knows all, Lou definitely does not reveal all because there is the danger of infringing upon our free will. And they're very concerned with infringing upon our free will. And that one of the reasons why Lou would know all but not reveal all is because there are lessons that all of us, regardless of whether you're a wanderer or a native third density soul, there are lessons that we all have to learn on our own. And so Lou's not gonna give us all the answers. Lou, even though Lou is filled with love and compassion to the point that sometimes they suffer because they see us suffering, they still won't give us the information that would take us out of our suffering if they saw that through that suffering we would learn valuable lessons. And if they relieve that suffering by giving us information that would infringe upon our free will, they would be robbing us of learning those lessons that we haven't learned, even though we're within a state of suffering while we're learning those lessons. And so, even though they have so much love and compassion, and that they have sorrow seeing us in pain or seeing us confused, they're still not going to give us the information. So it's important to understand that a lot of lines of questioning would be stopped because there's that possibility of infringing upon our free will. And also, they don't want to waste our time or to give us more information, which would cause confusion. And so, even though sometimes that they would be limiting on the amount of information that they give us, sometimes we'll go through and we'll get to a certain stage in our learning, and all of a sudden they'll reveal that information that was at once withheld from us. And so that's always been a really cool thing to work through, to meet a wall with Lou where they won't tell us anymore or tell us to wait. And sometimes weeks or months will go by, and all of a sudden it'll just flood in, and all of a sudden that topic will be reopened. and and it's like sometimes it's funny, they'll say like level up, like, or like next level, they'll like you're playing a video game, and they'll say, a new level has been a new level has been reached. Like I'll learn, a lot of the time it's about me, and like that I've learned a lesson, and then that opens up the floodgates to more information that's not always fun to get, because it always comes with new challenges, and brings me to new places of discomfort, like this, like doing videos on YouTube. I would have never thought that I would have a YouTube channel and I'd be here with you talking like this, because it's just not me. I'm not necessarily a YouTuber like Bryce is. Bryce is a natural when it comes to YouTube, but me, I'm a bit shy, introverted, although Lou likes to say that I'm the extrovert in the relationship, which I have a hard time believing. But here I am, being my uncomfortable, introverted self here talking to you on YouTube. And so, that was prompted through Lou, yeah, telling me, my little confused wanderer, why don't you get a YouTube channel and start talking about this information? And so here I am sharing this with you now, and trying to step out of my comfort zone. And slowly over time, I guess I'm getting a little bit less uncomfortable. Not saying that I'm necessarily comfortable with this, but I'm just sitting in my discomfort and putting myself out there, because I do feel like that this information is important, and obviously it's part of my dharma. And Yeah, so anyway, I wanted to keep this short, but I think I've been going on for a while, and I feel like that I have covered, I'm looking at my list now, that I've covered everything that I intended to cover. And so for now, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you for joining me. And look out for upcoming live videos with Lou. And if you want, uh, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and also hit, I think it's the bell for notifications so you can be notified when Bryce and I start going live with Lou, which should be coming up pretty soon. So thanks for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.